Prime Minister Mark Carney can now say he kept his first major political promise, turning legislation to fast-track major projects into law by Canada Day. Bill C-5 passed the Senate yesterday and received royal assent.
Is it your pleasure, honourable senators, to adopt the motion?
Yes.
Adopté.
The bill is aimed at boosting Canada's economy and reducing dependence on the United States. Part of it opens up interprovincial trade barriers, but it also makes it easier for the government to greenlight projects that it deems to be in the national interest, projects like pipelines, mines, and highways. Janice McGregor is leading our coverage on the story in Ottawa. C-5 really rushed through the Commons and the Senate in a sense, Janet, just a matter of weeks to meet that deadline of Canada Day, the Prime Minister said. It's law now, so what happens now?
Well, of course, just passing this into law doesn't build any projects. It doesn't fund any projects. It doesn't even in and of itself approve any projects. Notwithstanding the dire warnings about what some felt were draconian measures in this bill, we are not waking up this morning to a country that exists now as a rules-free zone for major infrastructure. We will see, though, whether easing up on the regulatory burden helps strike the better balance that fans of this bill said was necessary. The Prime Minister heard loud and clear from Indigenous leaders, for one, that his process had fallen far short of what they would have wanted. He is committed to, frankly, spending a chunk of his summer now in key conversations with them, trying to set that right. Anytime you work fast, you run the risk of breaking things. Paula Simons was one of many senators quite uncomfortable with how the Senate got squeezed in the end here because of the Prime Minister's July 1st deadline.
There is a convention that says that if a prime minister runs on a topic, wins a mandate, had it in the platform, that we, the appointed House, show proper deference to the elected House of Commons. And so we did our job of laying out all our concerns very clearly. And that way, if something does go sideways, we will have the somewhat dubious pleasure of being able to say, we told you so.
Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson is on CBC's Front Burner podcast today. He was talking about how anyone who thinks that the government could have gone slower, had a more dragged out process, well, they should be talking to the workers who are losing their jobs right now because of the ongoing trade war. The business community wanted it, and now they've got it.
This is not the federal government building projects. This is us creating the environment through the Act to give them regulatory clarity and certainty so they'll put their money to work for Canadians.
Is this really going to work? For that, frankly, we're going to need a test case, proof of concept. Then we will see whether it really was government rules standing in the way of a building spree or whether citing red tape was just a convenient excuse. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith wouldn't say who, but she was insistent earlier this week that there is a proponent right in the wings, all set to build a new West Coast bitumen pipeline, set to step up. The Premier of the neighbouring province, David Eby, has always maintained that, in fact, no, there isn't a proponent for anything like that at the moment. We are about to see who's right.
Janice, this law, C-5, also allows the Prime Minister to say he did his part to remove interprovincial trade barriers. How will that work?
Yeah, and just to be clear here, not every barrier is lifted. Most of that work was not the federal government's to do. A lot of the burden sat on provincial shoulders. There are some premiers who fell short of bringing everything down by Canada Day. There's going to be a meeting early next month of federal and provincial trade ministers to take stock of how they did. But the billions of dollars that proponents of cutting the interprovincial barriers, they insisted will be unlocked by doing this. That's not going to start to flow just next week. Again, we are about to find out whether it really has been government rules that have been causing Canada to fall short of its economic potential.
Thank you, Janice. Janice McGregor is in Ottawa.